You know that feeling when you finally get something you really wanted and there's maybe a second of satisfaction, but then, bam, what's next?
Yeah, that little voice, always looking for the next thing. It's pretty universal, that itch.
Exactly. And that's kind of our starting point today. We're all driven by this desire to know more while you're here, right?
And sometimes that sheer amount of information, it can feel like a lot. So our goal with these deep dives is different. You bring the sources and we try to help you cut through the noise.
Perfect. So today we're tackling a big one, contentment. We're looking specifically at chapter 46 from the Built for God Handbook.
Which is interesting because it's a Christian take on principles from the Tao Te Ching, that ancient wisdom about living in harmony.
Right, and we've got the chapter text itself, plus these sections called renewal. They break down contentment into mindset, aim, and practice.
And there's also a response section. That one looks at how these ideas pop up in other major religions too. Really fascinating parallels.
So our mission today, let's really unpack what these sources say about finding contentment and maybe figure out why it feels so relevant, right now.
Sounds good. Where should we start? That horse analogy in chapter 46. So, first scenario. The world is aligned with God and the horses. They retire to haul fertilizer.
Hauling fertilizer.
It shifts the image from warfare and forceful ambition to peaceful productivity, contributing. The source links this to Romans 8 about living by the Spirit, not fleshly desires. It leads to life and peace.
So when things are aligned that need to constantly push and conquer, it sort of fades, replaced by something more grounded.
That seems to be the idea. Service, growth, but peaceful. Then comes the flip side.
When the world is separate from God, what happens to the horses then?
They're equipped for cavalry. They trample the fields. It's all aggression, conflict, destruction.
And chaos, basically.
Right. And the source connects this to warnings in Jeremiah and Isaiah about disobedience, about separation from God, leading to, negative consequences. It paints a stark picture. Inner disconnection leads to outer turmoil.
So our inner state really does ripple outwards. It's not just in our heads.
That's a key takeaway, I think. And the chapter's pretty blunt about what causes this separation, this disaster.
It doesn't hold back, does it?
Not at all. It says things like, there is no sin greater than excessive desire, and no disaster greater than discontentment. Also, no misfortune greater than excessive greed. Strong words. Huge problems. The source points to 1 Timothy 6 and Ecclesiastes 5, both warn about chasing money, that feeling that you never have enough. It's identifying that deep, gnawing dissatisfaction as the root.
Okay, so if that's the poison, the endless wanting, what's the antidote according to chapter 46?
The core message comes down to this. To know contentment links this straight to Philippians 4, where the Apostle Paul talks about finding contentment in Christ, no matter his circumstances, rich or poor, full or hungry.
So true satisfaction isn't about getting more stuff or more status.
No, it's about finding it within, rooted in that relationship with God, trusting his provision. That's the foundation the chapter lays.
Okay, so harmony versus separation, the danger of wanting too much, and finding peace in God. Now, how do we actually cultivate that? The renewal sections dive into this, starting with mindset.
Yeah, mindset first. First up is the mindset of humility and purpose. This links back to those horses hauling fertilizer.
The humble service idea.
Exactly. Finding real value in serving others, even in tasks that seem, mundane. It cites Matthew 20, whoever wants to be great must be your servant, and Colossians 3 about working heartily for the Lord.
That really pushes against how we often value things, doesn't it? Always looking for the big, impressive role.
It suggests maybe real worth isn't always in the spotlight. Maybe it's just faithfully doing what needs doing. Makes you think, do we overvalue status sometimes?
Definitely. Okay, what's the next mindset shift?
It builds on that. The mindset of connection with God. This connects to the other horse image, the chaotic cavalry.
The danger of being disconnected.
Precisely. It emphasizes how feeling separate from that spiritual anchor can lead to inner and outer chaos. It mentions Psalm 145, God being near to those who call. And John 15, the vine and branches stay connected to the source of life.
So prioritizing that connection isn't just a nice idea. It's crucial for avoiding that trampling the field scenario.
That's the implication. Disconnection has real consequences. Then, building on that, we get the mindset of gratitude and contentment. This tackles those warned about desire head on. It's about actively pushing back against that constant need more message from consumer culture, finding peace, appreciation for what you already have right now. It quotes 1 Timothy 6 again, godliness with contentment is great gain, And 1 Thessalonians 5, give thanks in all circumstances. It's a conscious shift away from perceived lack towards valuing the present.
Which is so countercultural, really. We're always pushed towards the next upgrade.
Totally. This mindset says, wait, look around, appreciate this. Following that is the mindset of trust in God's provision.
It sounds like letting go of anxiety.
It encourages relying on God's timing, God's resources, instead of constantly striving and worrying and trying to control everything yourself.
Trusting the process, in a way.
God meeting our needs, and Matthew 6.33, seek first his kingdom. It's about releasing that white-knuckle grip on control.
That's a hard one, though, especially when everything screams, achieve more, get more.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough. But the mindset suggests there's freedom in trusting something bigger than just your own hustle. Then there's the fifth one, simplicity and humility.
How does that play out?
This connects to a slightly puzzling line. Great straightness seems crooked. Great skill seems clumsy. The idea is that true greatness, in this view, is often quiet, understated, focused on genuine service, not appearances.
So it's not about being flashy.
Not at all. Matthew 23, the greatest among you will be your servant. And James 4, humble yourselves and he will lift you up are the touchstones. Real strength doesn't need to shout.
Quiet impact. I like that. And the last mindset.
Mindset of rest and renewal. This comes from the line, bustling about overcomes cool times.
Meaning, always being busy burned you out.
Essentially, yeah. It highlights the absolute necessity of stillness, of quiet, to recharge and overcome stress. It points to Matthew 11, Jesus' call to the weary to find rest, and Exodus 33, God promising his presence and rest.
So rest isn't lazy, it's essential.
Fundamental. Especially now, right? When busyness is worn like a badge of honor, this says, no, you need to stop. You need to renew.
Okay, so those are the shifts in how we think. How does that translate into what we actually aim for? That's the aim section, right?
Exactly. It takes those mindsets and turns them into intentional goals. First is the aim for contentment and trust in God's provision.
Basically, deciding to prioritize trust over stuff.
Pretty much. Focusing on God's care rather than endlessly chasing material things. Again, 1 Timothy 6 and Hebrews 13, be content with what you have. It makes you ask, what's my real goal here? More accumulation, or something deeper?
A fundamental question. What's the second aim?
Aiming for humility and simplicity. This means intentionally choosing to act humbly, sincerely, without needing the applause.
Like we discussed with the mindset.
Right. It links back to Matthew 23 and James 4. It's about checking your motivation. Am I doing this for show or from a genuine place?
That internal check feels really important. What's next?
The aim for inner peace and stillness. This connects to that idea of stillness overcoming heat or chaos.
So actively pursuing calm.
Yes. Cultivating that inner peace through trust in God. Psalm 46.10, be still and know that I am God, is key here. And John 14, Jesus offering peace. The aim is to build that internal sanctuary.
A safe harbor inside yourself. I get that. The fourth aim?
Aim for humble service to others. Back to the horses, finding purpose in simple work.
Valuing contribution no matter how small it seems.
Exactly. Referencing Galatians 5 and Matthew 20 again, aiming to recognize the worth in helping others, shifting focus from me to we or others.
That really builds community, doesn't it? Okay, next aim.
Aim for balance and moderation in life. This tackles that bustling about idea.
Avoiding burnout.
And stagnation too, probably. It advocates for a healthy rhythm work and rest, activity, and quiet. Ecclesiastes 3, a time for everything, and Matthew 11, finding rest, are relevant here, aiming for sustainability in how we live.
Not living life at unsustainable extremes. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the final aim.
This one takes a longer view. Aim for eternal perspective over temporary gains.
Thinking beyond the immediate win.
Precisely. Tying into the idea that true contentment is lasting. So the aim is to prioritize things of eternal value over fleeting success or possessions. Matthew 6, contrasting earthly and heavenly treasures, is the core idea, aiming your life towards what truly endures.
Okay, so we've got the mindset shifts and the intentional aims, but how do we actually do this day to day? That's the practice section, I assume.
You got it. First, practice contentment and trust in God's provision. This suggests actively doing things that cultivate gratitude, maybe keeping a journal, consciously choosing to rely on God's care.
Like exercising a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Referencing 1 Timothy 6 and Philippians 4 again, it's not passive, it's an active practice.
It's a deliberate choice.
Practice humility and embrace simplicity. This means consistently choosing humble actions, serving without needing recognition, making that quiet, sincere service a regular part of your interactions.
Okay, the next practice.
Practice peace and stillness in the midst of chaos. This recommends actually scheduling things like prayer, meditation, or just quiet time.
Building it into your routine.
Yeah, it's about developing those practical tools for finding calm when life gets noisy, building that inner sanctuary we talked about.
Got it. Practice 4.
Practice service and humility in everyday life. This is about looking for those small, everyday chances to help someone without expecting anything back.
Like holding a door or offering help.
Could be anything, really. Galatians 5 and Matthew 20 again, making service a natural habitual response, seeing opportunities everywhere.
Okay, number 5.
Practice balance and moderation in life. This is about intentionally designing your life to have that healthy rhythm.
Setting boundaries. Scheduling downtime.
Exactly. Using Ecclesiastes 3 and Matthew 11 as guides. Consciously avoiding extremes, making sure you're not always running on empty or stuck in neutral.
Protecting your energy and well-being.
Yeah.
And the final practice.
Practice eternal perspective over temporary desires. This means actively evaluating your choices, asking yourself, how does this align with my deeper long-term values?
Filtering decisions through that eternal lens.
Right. Not just what feels good or looks good right now.
Wow. Okay, so the renewal part gives us a real roadmap. Shift the mindset, set the aim, implement the practice. That's quite practical.
It really lays it out.
Now, the final section, respond, looks outward. It finds parallels in other religious traditions. It's pretty amazing how these themes echo, isn't it?
It really is striking. Take contentment and trust in God's provision. The source draws lines between Christianity, Buddhism's focus on detachment from desire, Islamic teachings on moderation, and the Hindu idea of santosha satisfaction with what you have.
So different languages, different frameworks, but a similar understanding about the danger of always wanting more.
Exactly. And the importance of inner peace. It suggests this is a really fundamental part of the human condition, grappling with dissatisfaction.
We all struggle with it, it seems. What about humility and simplicity in action?
Similar echoes. Christian servanthood, Buddhist letting go of ego, Islamic warnings against arrogance, Hindu value placed on humility for growth.
Again, a shared emphasis on service over self-promotion.
Yes. And on getting the ego out of the way, humility comes across as universally central to a meaningful life in these traditions.
It's powerful to see that common thread and finding peace and stillness in a chaotic world.
Another point of convergence. Christian stillness in God, Buddhist meditation, Islamic dhikr or remembrance, Hindu yoga and meditation.
Everyone needs calm, and different traditions offer paths to find it.
Absolutely. It highlights that shared human need for an anchor when life gets overwhelming.
It really does. What about service to others and humility in work?
We see it again. Christianity's call to serve the least of these. Buddhist compassion in action. The Islamic idea that the best people are those who benefit others. The Hindu concept of seva, selfless service.
A universal valuing of contribution and compassion.
It seems so. It builds community, reflects care foundational stuff across the board.
It shows how our actions matter beyond ourselves. And lastly, moderation and balance in life.
Christian wisdom in Ecclesiastes, the Buddhist middle way, avoiding extremes, the Islamic ideal of a balanced community, Hindu focus on moderation, it all points towards avoiding extremes.
Finding that middle path as the way to peace and fulfillment.
Yeah, a shared wisdom about managing ourselves, our resources, our desires to maintain harmony.
That common sense idea, really extremes usually lead to trouble. So drawing all these threads together, what's the big picture, the main takeaway from this whole deep dive?
Well, it seems like contentment, whether you look at it through this Christian Taoist lens or see the echoes in other faiths, isn't really about getting everything you want.
It's not about accumulation.
No, it's more about appreciating what you do have and maybe fostering trust in something beyond just yourself, a higher power or a larger plan.
Shifting from external seeking to internal gratitude and peace.
Exactly. And these sources consistently suggest that real lasting fulfillment, it comes from that inner peace, from humility, from serving others, finding balance, and keeping that bigger, eternal perspective in mind.
Not from the endless chase for more.
That seems to be the clear message.
So for you, the listener, maybe a final thought to mull over. Is there one area in your life right now where you feel that pull of discontentment, that not enough feeling?
And based on what we've talked about, what's one tiny shift you could make? Maybe in your mindset, maybe a small practice. Just something to nudge you towards a little more contentment today.
It could be pausing to be grateful, doing a small kindness, or just taking 5 minutes of quiet.
Yeah, Just an invitation to reflect on how these ideas land with you in your own experience. You might want to check out the full BFG Handbook or look up some of those scriptures or concepts from other traditions we mentioned.
There's always more to explore on this path, right? Seeking that deeper, more content way of living.